There we go. All right. And we're finally live again. And today I'm going to talk about Chris Hansen. Now, I I saw people's eyes light up when people thought, "Oh wow, Chris Hansen is now on the case of Onision. You know, maybe we're now going to see some justice come to Onision." And yeah, a whole bunch of YouTubers decided to jump on Chris Hansen's podcast. They're now backpedaling away from wanting to be associated with Chris Hansen because they've, you know, they found out that there's a string of, uh, well, kind of like a con man like effect around him, where he's promised people that he was going to come up with shows, and it didn't happen, and he's bounced checks, and there's all sorts of bad history with Chris Hansen. He's been sued because of his show. He's not delivered on a Kickstarter. You know, it's it's stuff that I guess people didn't realize when they were getting uh, onto his channel for these live streams, that they were basically associating themselves with somebody who was a has been. And you know, I don't blame them. They probably had stars in their eyes, because who looks up a star's entire, you know, horrible tabloid history before they go, well, yes, I want to go be on his show. If they're, in this thing for the popularity contest that it is, this YouTube experience that we all have. So what I wanted to do here, because I don't like regurgitating what other people have to say about a subject, is I want to add something a little bit different. This is in the vein of all of the different uh, academic deep dives that I've done on other subjects recently in the past few months. And so I decided to look up Chris Hansen uh, in academic journals and share with you all what I found. All right. So, first, I'd say if you're going to do a story on Chris Hansen and how it relates to the Onision story, and you're doing backstory on Chris Hansen, I've seen a couple videos like this. First, I would go ahead and lay the groundwork as far as what Chris Hansen has meant to the movement against online sexual predators. Right? So, this first article, it does just that. If you scoot on over to where it's mentioning Chris Hansen, it says he's become a folk hero of sorts and has even authored a successful book, To Catch a Predator, Protecting Your Kids from Enemies Already in Your Home. You know, it's an academic mention. It sets the stage. It's from 2007. You know, in around that area where Chris Hansen had his popularity peaking. This next article that we're going to go over, it's called "The House That Fox Built: Anonymous Spectacle and Cycles of Amplification." And it's probably the funniest mention of Chris Hansen because um, it basically is just talking about how he became a meme on 4chan. Whenever sexual predators were talked about on Fox News, people on 4chan would respond to that story with Chris Hansen memes, just like using his picture and him saying things like, "Hey, take a seat." Um, yeah, and just seeing Chris Hansen's name right next to the over 9,000 penises meme, um, you know, it's funny. Um, Next, we've got social networking websites. Are MySpace and Facebook the fingerprints of the 21st century? Again, the only reason why they're bringing up Chris Hansen in this is just to say that there's network television such as Dateline NBC's series To Catch a Predator that helped investigate and apprehend child predators. That's it. They're just mentioning him for the zeitgeist reference. This next one, it's a little bit different. It has nothing to do with his show To Catch a Predator because, mind you, although we associate Chris Hansen with To Catch a Predator, he was on Dateline, which was a larger show. And this is actually an academic article which mentions him for something other than his coverage of sexual predators. Um, and he's just in the end in the credits right there. Um, that's it. But it still sets up that he was considered a journalist that was more than just the predator guy, right? This next one, uh, it's called "The War on the Fallout of Declaring War on Social Issues." Symposium article, "The Ticking Sex Offender Time Bomb." That's what you'll find it under, and it's in the Journal of Gender and Race and Justice. Um, if you look for Chris Hansen in this, uh, it says that he's famous for that show To Catch a Predator. But what's interesting in this little turn here is it mentions the show thus served the function of getting high ratings and tapping into public fear without actually decreasing sexual violence in any significant manner. And that's something that, if you're going to talk about Chris Hansen, you should talk about the effect of the show. Um, and in some of these articles to follow, you'll see that it's mentioned many times that less than half of the predators that they caught actually got convicted for what they caught them for. They were outed publicly, which is pretty bad. I would never want this to happen to me. But yeah, what they actually did, it's argued a lot what the benefits of that show actually were. We'll get into that. This article right here, it's reinvigorated judicial discretion after Booker, burden or boon to sexual exploitation offenders, right? And in it, Chris Hansen's referenced. Um, it says in Dateline's investigation, the news outlet caught 88 men, including a rabbi, a federal agent from the Department of Homeland Security. In only a period of 9 days, they caught 88 men, right? It goes on to talk about him, but the part that if you're going to be critical of Chris Hansen, pay attention. This footnote, it says, Chris Hansen interviewed Dr. Fred Berlin from Johns Hopkins Sexual Disorders Clinic, and it says in response to Hansen's statement that the natural reaction after seeing a story like this is to say, lock these guys up, throw away the key. Dr. Berlin explained there's nothing about prison alone that will either erase those sexual cravings or enhance their capacity to successfully resist acting upon them unless there's a strong criminal justice component and a strong public health component, in my judgment, we are doing society a tremendous disservice. And this was actually something said to Chris Hansen's face on a To Catch a Predator episode. I can see in the chat that Medical Vitriol says that I'm late to this party. I'm exploring something completely off the subject, just in my own way. Bear with me. There's more, okay? Um, next article. This one's called "Catch," in quotations, and "Release: Procedural Unfairness on Primetime Television and the Perceived Legitimacy of the Law." Now, this is in the Journal of Criminal Law and Criminology at the University of Northwestern University School of Law. And let's go ahead and go to Hansen's mention. It says that he worked alongside Perverted Justice, which is a private investigative group. And it goes on to make the argument that the work that was done should probably have been done by police officers, right? And the problems of using a nonprofit volunteer group to do this work and how it affects the criminal process. And that's right here. It's not trained police officers that are posing as underage people that are the bait for this. It's volunteers, which it just opens up a whole bunch of legal problems, right? It then goes on to talk about two of the controversies on To Catch a Predator and the lawsuits, rather. And one is Bartell versus NBC Universal. So Marsha Bartell decided to sue because she brought up a whole bunch of the problems that Chris Hansen's segment was bringing to Dateline NBC. And basically, she was talking about right here, these things led to additional acts of humiliation in order to enhance the comedic effect of the public exposure of these persons, right? She had a problem with this. NBC fired her, right? And it's because she had ethical concerns, so she sued them, right? The second one is actually covered by a whole bunch of other YouTube channels right now. It's the Conrad versus NBC Universal. This guy, Conrad, he was a DA in Texas, and he was targeted by To Catch a Predator. What's interesting was they got him online. He was talking to their fake teenager, and he didn't take the bait completely. He didn't show up to anything, and so basically they decided to go really quickly over to his house, and so in this move to just like swarm his house, Dateline was basically embedded with the police, and it caused all sorts of legal trouble as far as what happened later, because Lewis Bill Conrad Jr. He decided to commit suicide right in front of the cops. And what was really horrible about that. Well, first there was the whole Chris Hansen asked the police for a favor, stating if he won't come to us, we'll go to him. So basically, it was the perverted justice and Dateline NBC, Chris Hansen, pushing the police in order to go raid his house. And then one of the policemen actually said on there's video footage of this. This will make good TV, and that was like after Conrad had shot himself and he was being taken off to the hospital where he later died. So this stuff, it's all chronicled right here in an academic journal where you can cite it in your videos on YouTube. If you're going to talk about Chris Hansen, this one right here, it tells the entire story, right? And it's got all these citations of where it's getting the information. It's wonderful stuff, right? Um, Next article. This is Suffer the Children, National Crisis, Affective Collectivity, and the Sexualized Child. Right? So we go to where Chris Hansen is mentioned in here. And okay, I'm going to have to translate from social justice warrior. Okay, I'm fluent. Trust me in this. I will give you. I will shoot you straight. But here we go. This sometimes happens in academia. You've probably seen it before. But the sentence here, referring to Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator, says, the program thus powerfully reiterates that hypervigilant patriarchal intervention, control over the household, and ultimately the child are the necessary conditions to ensure that the child's safety. Okay, so what this is saying is the show To Catch a Predator is bad because when Chris Hansen walks out and says, hey, could you have a seat right there? The predator often mistakes Chris Hansen for being possibly the teenager's father. And that obedience that they immediately have to him as being that father figure is something that they're exploiting, and they're pushing this narrative of, oh, you thought you were going to have sex with a teenager, now here's the father of that teenager. And because that is patriarchy, it's therefore bad, so a show should not be doing that. That's what this article is saying. Um, Moving on. Okay, this one is another really good one. It's To Catch a Lawsuit: Constitutional Principles at Work in the Investigative Journalism Genre, and this is in Vanderbilt's Journal of Environment and Technology Law, right? And this is from 2012. So, what's good about this article versus the last one that talked about NBC's law problems because of Chris Hansen? This one talks about a different guy. He is Tuwari, and he's got a strange name, but basically, Mr. Tuwari's episode from To Catch a Predator is on YouTube. I watched it, and he was, guilty as sin. But he sued NBC Universal for this intentional infliction of emotional distress, right? And also, there were other things that came up in both Tawari and Conrad's lawsuits that had to do with the Fourth Amendment and illegal search and seizure. And basically, they said that they thought they were in places where there was a uh, the right, and so they had this assumption that they were being private, and when there were cameras set up, especially when they were being caught, but just cameras set up on this entire process, it was some sort of illegal search, right? And especially after they have been taken into custody, it was compared to a perp walk, and so this perp walk is something that already they had case law saying that you're not allowed to do that because it's uh, it's basically it's basically saying to people like, hey, look at this guy, we arrested him, ha ha ha, and so then it's against people's uh, right against uh, cruel and unusual punishment, right? Perp walks. And so when people get caught on To Catch a Predator, uh, the arrest and then everything thereafter that is part of the show that people want to see, it's been compared to a perp walk, right? And I don't even know if legally this has been settled, right? It's not gone all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, and it, you know, I think it might have some merit in what they're saying. Not sure. I'm not a legal expert. I'm just trying to wade through all this. Um, but when you look at the Tawari episode, he's guilty as sin. But when he walks into the next room to get away from Chris Hansen, they put a gun right in his face, right? And so another part of his lawsuit was that they used unnecessary force when they arrested him, after the arrest, but also just the fact that like he was trying to guard his face from the cameras getting more shots of his face, and he walks right into a gun in his face, and so um, he said that that was unnecessary. Anyways, Tawari is one more of the lawsuits that happened against NBC, and it was basically the intentional infliction of emotional distress for the entertainment of everyone, right? And what I also thought was interesting that was that in the show, Tawari said that he was a PhD of computer science, and I was like, wow, a PhD of computer science doesn't know that you shouldn't be chatting up teenagers in chat rooms. You're gonna get caught, you know. Next, we have this article is called "Trespass and Deception." Uh, this is in the Brigham Young University Law Review, and it actually, to me, it looks like it's pro Chris Hansen coverage in academic journalism. It says this use of undercover reporting did not involve trespass or any apparent violation of the law. One target later did kill himself, however, leading to the lawsuit and further discussion by scholars and media ethicists as to the proper use of deception by journalists. Right. So This was a 2015 article, looking back on all those legal controversies and all of the conversations that happened. And I don't know if I should be looking into this way, but my perception is this is BYU, you know, and they have a particular slant on politics and law. And so maybe that's why they're on Chris Hansen's side. Maybe. I don't know. Um, Next, we have in the University of Kansas Law Review, um, cultivating a relationship that works, cyber vigilantism, and the public versus private inquiry of cyber predator stings. That was a mouthful. We go down to where Chris Hansen's mentioned, and it starts talking about the show has faced its fair share of skepticism. Um, it says that Chris Hansen asserts that the show and law enforcement run parallel investigations with an impenetrable Chinese wall between what the volunteers are doing and what the police are doing. But from other things that Chris Hansen has said that have come out into light as being lies, I'd say that this impenetrable Chinese wall, especially in the Conrad case, was another lie. Um, yeah, so this has a lot of good uh, citations on all of the skepticism surrounding perverted justice, how it operates, um, all the problems that it brings up in legal issues from the cases that get lost. Um, it's good stuff. If you're going to do a thorough roasting of Chris Hansen's career, you're probably going to have to read this and follow it as a map to all the gold, right? Um, Next, we've got this one right here is Caging Sex Offenders by Dennis J. Stevens. It was in the Value Inquiry book series in 2013, right? And what I want to point out here is this is an academic article, right? Mentions Chris Hansen once, right? And it's basically saying that Chris Hansen making out sex offenders, trying to catch your kids, and calling it a national epidemic was wrong. And these sex offenders aren't uh, like the handful of predators such as Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, and the Boston Strangler. Then the article kind of goes into more talking about Dr. Phil and how Dr. Phil has child sex predators and stuff. So it kind of gets off of the topic of Chris Hansen, but it's basically saying that he's blowing up this problem into something that it isn't. And this one right here is recent developments in Indiana criminal law and procedure. Going down to where Chris Hansen is mentioned, we have right here problems that Indiana's been having, such as what if an adult engages in a sexually charged online chat with an officer pretending to be a child online, but never sets up a meeting? Um, and basically it's saying that neither a meeting nor an immediate request to meet is necessary to complete the crime of child solicitation, because mere exposures to such situ. I'm just gonna. I'll tell it to you straight. If the guy says to the kid, "Hey, touch yourself," boom, they don't even have to meet, right? But one of the problems that they've had, uh, also, in having fake teenagers, where it's like a volunteer posing as a teenager, is the actual statutes say that sexual misconduct with a minor requires an actual minor aged 14 or 15, not an adult pretending to be a child, right? So they've lost a lot of their cases basically because it was somebody pretending and not a real person, because they didn't actually do that. Whether or not they prove the solicitor believed that the solicitee is a minor. So they've messed up a whole bunch of cases. They publicly shamed people, which is punishment, but in the end they didn't get legal punishment. Uh, Next, we've got testing the boundaries of the First Amendment press clause, a proposal for protecting the media from news gathering torts. And this is way back in 2009, Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy. Chris Hansen's barely mentioned. The lawsuits against him are in here. But basically, uh, when you get down to the end, the what the guy is trying to say is, um, basically, journalists need to stand up and fight for uh, preserving their ability to do this kind of journalism. And what the writer is proposing is that certain individuals be given the right to test where the law is. They get testers' rights, like when people get beta access to a video game. These people will be considered trusted, and then they will be able to do this, and then like only those people that they've told, okay, you can do this. And then if they mess up, well, they're the tester, so then they know that this kind of journalism should not be done. But if they are found to have integrity, and everything that they do is journalistically sound with their ethics, then let them keep doing it, because it's important journalism. That's what the argument is in this article, as far as I can tell. Read it yourself. These last two that I'm going to talk about, they are, to me, in tandem, the biggest part of uh, what people should be talking about when they're talking about Chris Hansen and his entire career of To Catch a Predator. Basically, this line right here, I think says it all. To Catch a Predator with Chris Hansen, as a show structured uh, by its audiences, our pleasure in engaging the fantasy. She calls it highly scripted sadomasochism scene of the prospective child molester caught red-handed by the preppy father figure. Um, Going on reading this, basically it's saying um, people are watching this with one of two uh, perspectives, and both of them are horrible. One of them is from the perspective of the fantasy that you're getting caught for sexual predation of a child. The other one is the fantasy of let's publicly flog the sexual predator, right? And both of those are not healthy perspectives to be having when you're trying to enjoy television. When you're looking for that in your entertainment, you are a bad person if either of those is what you're seeking out to give you pleasure. Um, One's worse than the other, but in my mind, but that's what they're saying is like the entire uh, show is actually feeding into a fantasy. Um, it says here, she argues that there is pleasure or satisfaction in two modes of viewing. One, the familiar condemnation of the sexual predator who has shown up to the house, we all know is bugged to the gills with microphones and hidden cameras, ready for sex with a minor. The other, a much more unsettling alignment with the predator. We, the audience, watch Hansen, the host, read back to the predator the fantasies he has chatted about online. The predator begs Hansen to stop. We tune in to hear these transcripts and thus involve ourselves in the fantasies they contain. So, to me, this is actually the biggest uh, critique of Chris Hansen, hands down. Is basically he makes I got caught as a child predator porn for TV, and you watch it because the world sucks and it's depraved. This last article feeds right into that. This is just called To Catch a Predator. Uh, it's by Amy Adler, and it's in Columbia Journal of Gender and Law. And it was published in 2011. And, oh man, there's so many references to Chris Hansen in this, but it starts out with the scene of the crime is just talking about the whole setup of the show, how it works. Um, Next is the show's impact, ratings, suicide, which is talking about the Conrad case, and legislation. And it actually affected legislation a lot further than just child predators. It affected child pornography laws as well. But right here, we have the same sort of argument against Chris Hansen, which is go out here reading this show as a scene of fantasy. Okay, um, or reading the show as a disavowed child pornography. These are things that, if you were really, really wanting to roast Chris Hansen, this is how you would approach the topic of his show in general, right? It was trash TV, and the fantasies that it was stoking in people, the nerves that it was hitting, were disgusting in some respects. Um, you can't really say why people were watching. What was their intent? What kind of kick did they get out of the show? But this one here is saying that some people see this show as the S&M scene of the child getting beaten, right? And this is a Freudian thing, but basically, uh, we know that somebody got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and we get pleasure seeing them getting punished, right? We have a sadistic glee. The pure sadistic glee of the show is palpable as Chris Hansen metaphorically beats the predator into submission until the predator is left groveling on the floor, begging, "Stop, please stop." Right? If you wanted to talk about Chris Hansen, this right here is the article for you. Um, and it goes into the sadomasochism of spectatorship as well. The fact that they're punishing these people because there is an audience. You know, yeah. Anyways, uh, that's the end of my trek into Chris Hansen in academic research, and now we will talk to the chat. Um, Medical Vitriol says it should only be authorized by cops and not a TV show. Maybe there's people who make legal arguments for that. I think that when you have volunteers basically posing as bait, they're putting themselves in a little bit of danger, especially the actor that has to open the door to let them into the place where Chris Hansen then says take a seat. That person should probably be a cop. Um, Medical says, but intent to what to do stuff with a kid, regardless if it's an adult. Um, so there's this legal standard that some of these articles talk about, and it's called a substantial move. Um, that somebody who says, "Hey, I want to rob a bank today," if they don't make a substantial move towards that, then they haven't broken the law yet. That if you were to just prosecute people based on what they chatted, then you could be just doing thought crimes and breaking people's freedom of speech if they didn't do a substantial move. Um, which is why I think that they're setting up these stings, because actively showing up where you think that kid is, then that means you did the deed. You've made that substantial move thing. Uh, Quintica Ted says perverted justice was a criminal enterprise. Um, they branched out since then. Um, he also says, do they cover the fact that perverted justice's head guy was a felon on the run and how Chris Hansen knew that? No, academia did not cover that. Let's see. Hi, Ted. Hey, Poseidon. Nice of you to show up at the end of the show. Um, Poseidon says, which side are you on, Chris Hansen or Onision? Um, wow. What a dichotomy. I think I'd rather choose between hashtag Team Edward and hashtag Team Jacob. you know, and I'm not a Twilight fan either. Um, Spurgleberry Farm says, are there any articles about the volunteers like perverted justice? I'm sure there's articles that aren't in academia, but none that were put into academic journals. No. Um, And this is the thing with all of the names that I've been researching. Uh, I looked for Onision in academic journals, and he is not there. Nothing. Uh, Crickets on people like Sargon of Akkad. Uh, you'll find a bunch of name drops of Anita Sarkeesian, but her greatest adversaries not so much. And that's the same thing with Onision. You find 20 or so different things where you can find Chris Hansen name dropped, but Onision, nowhere. He's nothing to academia. Even though I think if you're into sociology and you were studying the culture on YouTube, I think he might actually be study worthy as far as even the way that if you put Onision in the tags and title of your video, you're going to get twice as many views as you normally get. You know, I could have put his name in the title of this one because of his relation to Chris Hansen of late, but I decided not to because I don't need those kind of views. But I definitely think that there's something to that hating Onision as a group um, is something worth studying and probably will be studied by internet archaeologists in the future. Um, Teddy thinks Onision and Hansen are both pieces of shit. Okay. Um, I would tend to agree that the personal conduct of both have not uh, they have not impressed me at all. And lastly, Spurgleberry Farm says, "What if Onision is just a weirdo from Washington, where weirdos are produced with really bad dating habits, trying for an open relationship, polyamory?" Um, that was my understanding. Was there another option there? I don't know. Let's see. And medical says, wait. Thought crimes can be charged, aka threats, extortion, etc. Uh, yeah, but if we make everything chargeable at the stage of thought crime, then all of the edgy teenagers are going to have to get rounded up. Poseidon wants to know what's my view of transvestigation, the growing movement that claims all famous Hollywood women were really men in drag post-op trans. You know what? I'm not there yet as far as being able to comment on that, but I can tell you that if you're talking about Marilyn Monroe specifically, I did come across people with that theory on TikTok, and I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet. Um, I did have a friend once back when I guess South Park was in its like 10th season, um, and he had a theory that when everyone dies, they become gay because when people die, theories about them being gay with other people come out, and they cannot defend themselves. And so his position was, when you die, you become gay. And I think that this whole transvestigation thing with Marilyn Monroe now being investigated as being possibly a trans woman, I think that's very similar and very simplistic. Teddy says, If you look on YouTube videos for Del Harvey slash Allison Shea, you can find interviews of her talking about her rise to Twitter security. Okay. Um, who are the Anitos, Spurgleberry Farm? I don't know who Anitos are. Are they anti-O's as far as Onision? I don't know. Anyways, that's all the time I got tonight. Thank you all for showing up in the end. Uh, I'm putting this one behind me. I've given it my all. It's pretty easy to find those articles since the titles were flashed up on the screen. I don't think I need to help you out with that. If you do need help getting behind paywalls to find some of those articles, hit me up, let me know, I'll help you out. Um, but other than that, just thanks for watching.